Hello everyone, this is Gautam from Shailaja IS. The issue that we'll be discussing right now is your UGC Equity Regulations that was released in January 2026, and there was a huge public backlash against these regulations. Eventually, a case was filed in Supreme Court. Supreme Court heard the petitioners and their arguments, and they stayed these regulations to be operated until March 2026. So we'll try and understand what are these equity regulations, what were the key features of it, and what was the background or the context behind UGC formulating these regulations, and the controversy around it, or why public protested against these regulations. But before we go into that, we'll first try and understand what do you mean by UGC. UGC is your University Grants Commission. It is a body which is established by a parliament law. It was established in the 1950s itself. It functions under your Union Ministry of Education. The primary objective of this University Grants Commission is to ensure quality as well as growth of higher education in India. So what are the key functions that it undertakes? First and foremost is that it sets certain standards. If an institution has to be recognized as a medical institution or an engineering institutions, there are certain parameters which has to be followed. There are certain infrastructures that has to be set up. There has to be certain student and teacher ratio that has to be maintained. Curriculum has to be maintained or it needs to be approved. So UGC ensures that the quality of higher education is upheld through its standard setting and through its regulations. Second thing, it also provides grants. Grants in the sense it provides funding to these higher educational institutions. Okay. Third aspect which it also does is it conducts exams, UGC NET, that is National Eligibility Test. The exam is for recruitment of faculties or teachers into these higher educational institutions. It certifies or qualifies that these are the set of people who are eligible to be appointed as faculties in various higher educational institutions. So that is the primary role of your UGC. Okay, ensuring the quality and ensuring the growth of higher education institution. It also recognizes universities. In the sense, any college, if it is now started by a group of individuals, initially it will be affiliated to a higher educational universities which are started by the parliament or by your state legislatures. Right now, universities can be established by a law of parliament or by a law of a state legislature. Okay, so there are universities established at the state level and the universities established at the national level considered as your central universities. For example, your IITs and your NITs are all established by a law of a parliament. The parliament passes a legislation trying to establish these universities. Now, what is the significance of it? It means that it can confer degrees and it is officially and legally recognized. A degree which is conferred by university is alone considered as eligible. Whatever certificates that I might give as a private organization, it will not be having the value, right? So it also provides recognition to universities. Suppose today, for example, I'll tell you the best example is your Manipal group of institutions. It initially started as a private college which was affiliated to your Karnataka University and then your later Mangalore University. But over a period of 4 decades, the quality of teaching was so well recognized across the state and across the country. Eventually, the UGC granted it as a deemed to be university. In the sense, it is equivalent to a university that is established by a parliament or a state legislature. Now, once an academic institution gets this tag of deemed to be university, it can confer its degrees, it can raise its funds, it can modify its curriculum. It has greater autonomy in its functioning itself, right? So all that you can say approval or the necessary recognition is being provided by your UGC. So setting standards and monitoring or regulating it, granting funds for higher education institutions for the growth and expansion of it, conducting exams which helps in recruitment of faculties to higher educational institutions, and finally recognizing universities which can lawfully confer degrees to the students. Right? Now, we'll try and understand what is the meaning of the word equity. Everyone knows about equality. Equality of status and opportunity. Equality of, what do you mean by equality? Everyone is treated same. You consider the medieval or the ancient or pre-modern era, not everyone was treated as equals. For example, if there is a posting or if there is a vacancy in certain private organizations, right now, there isn't a distinction between a male or a female, or a person from a particular religion or not, or a particular caste or not, particular region or not. That does not matter. Everyone is treated equal. If at all there is any punishment that is offered to a particular crime, it does not distinguish if the person is from a particular background or not. Everyone is treated equal. That was not the case before your constitutional era. We have heard for a similar punishment, for a similar crime, a person from an upper caste used to get lighter punishment, whereas a person from the so-called lower caste used to get a more harsher or a tougher punishment. That was the case in your ancient and medieval era. Likewise, if a person wants to be appointed to a certain post, like a priest or a teacher or a particular advisor, generally there wasn't any equality of opportunity. It was only people from particular section or particular community or particular caste, only they were eligible for those positions. That is no more the situation right now. That is about equality of status and equality of opportunity. Now, equity means what? Equity means whatever is the existing inequality that we have in our society. See, because of hundreds and thousands of years of discrimination which certain sections of society are facing, it might be women as in general, it might be, you can say, scheduled caste or scheduled tribes community in general, they are not able to utilize the best possible extent of all this equality of opportunity. Suppose nowadays, for example, take your civil service exam itself. Obviously now it is open for everyone, the posts are open for everyone. But if this equity measure is not there, if we just say that, okay, it's equality of opportunity, anyone can apply, prepare and pass this examination, it is generally going to perpetuate the inequality, because people from better off sections of society, people who are having good access to resources, people who are having good access to teaching faculties, or coming from a good educational familial background, they'll always be an advantage of clearing this exam. So even so other person, for example, a woman or a person from a lower strata of society, even if there is equality of opportunity, will not be able to make the best use of it, primarily because the inequality structure, economic inequality or social inequality structure is so deeply entrenched in our society, the very meaning or the utility or the substance of equality itself loses its value. Therefore, we are going one step further, where we say that we have to be fair and we have to take certain just measures in order to address the existing inequality. And that is called as your equity. Equity is trying to address inequality in simple words. So if you want to tell me what do you mean by equity, it is about measures that you take which are considered to be fair and just, so as to address inequality in the society. It can be economic inequality, social inequality, educational inequality. So as a result, one of the most prominent equity measures which is taken by the government is your reservations, right? So as you can always see from the topic itself, UGC is trying to propose regulations so as to promote equity in your higher educational institutions. That is what is the crux of this topic. Okay, so it is going beyond, it is not just limiting itself to the curriculum aspect of it. It is saying that it is passing certain regulations whereby it says that the campus or the higher educational institutions should also be equitable, should also be inclusive, should also provide opportunities or programs to bridge the inequality in the society. So that is the crux of this entire issue, right? I think there is a very famous picture that if you have read NCERTs, you would have come across this. Equality is everyone gets one stool or box. As a result, that is what equality, everyone is getting equal number of you can say, resources, but it is not serving the purpose. Okay, especially the person who is at a disadvantageous position is unable to reap the benefits or is unable to get the benefit of it. Equity is a just and a fair redistribution of resources so that inequality is addressed. This person, even if he doesn't get a box, he's still able to see the match. Whereas this shorter person must require one additional box in order to see the match. That is the, you can say, the crux of the intention or the significance of equity, right? I will, as I told you, we'll first look into the context or background behind it. The first and foremost background or the context for these regulations was your Rohith Vemula incident in 2016. He was a PhD scholar in Hyderabad University and he committed suicide. And it was alleged in his letter that he was indirectly discriminated because of his caste. And that became a huge controversy at that particular point of time. I clearly remember I was preparing for civil services and I was deeply disturbed by the incident that unfolded in January or February 2016. But eventually that case was, you can say that media did not give so much of attention in the coming months. But his mother filed a case in the Supreme Court alleging that there was a caste discrimination in the university which led to Rohith Vemula committing suicide. So he said that it is not a suicide but an institutional murder. So that sparked a nationwide debate on what is the atmosphere that we are having in the campuses itself with regard to the caste discrimination policies. Same in 2019, Dr. Payal Tadvi, who was a postgraduate medical student in your Mumbai University, she committed suicide, and ostensibly the reason was the caste discrimination. So all this created a national debate on how our higher educational institutions are functioning with regard to or tackling with regard to your caste discrimination. Cases were filed in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court in 2025 said that or gave a direction to UGC. UGC, you please come pass certain regulations so as to address this issue. That was the directive given by your Supreme Court. And in lines with this directive, UGC passed that regulation in January 2026. And after that, there was a huge public outrage. Now, we'll try and understand what are the key features of the regulations, right? It is not like that the similar kind of framework was completely absent. There was a framework or regulations in 2012 as well. UGC had passed equity regulations or a framework in 2012, but it was not very tight. It was advisory in its nature. It was not having strict implementation provisions, right? So, and that is why it was considered as a failure of a sort, right? And your new educational policy of 2020 also clearly stated that inclusion as one of the main pillars of your education policy. So, and obviously your social justice mandate in your constitution clearly directs the states and authorities to create, you can say, educational spaces which are just, reasonable and inclusive in its character. Okay, so all this set forward the context of this particular issue. The very first, you can say, the provisions of this UGC Equity Regulations of 2026 was something called as Equal Opportunity Center. Every higher educational institution must constitute this Equal Opportunity Center. Now it is more or less like a welfare department. Now whatever might be the policies that has been framed by the union government or state government in order to facilitate the advancement of marginalized sections of society like your scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, women and OBCs or physically disabled people, all those provisions needs to be implemented, and that responsibility lies with your Equal Opportunity Center. Okay, I'll tell you one such program which was initiated almost 2 decades back when I gave my IIT exam. When I entered into IIT Guwahati, I came across one of my, we can say, classmate who was actually given coaching and training by the IIT Guwahati itself. What the campus had done, it identified students who were appearing for JEE and who were not having resources in order to prepare for the exam and compete in those exams. So what our institute did was that it picked up the students, gave them hostel facilities, gave them all the right set of teaching facilities in the campus itself, made them appear for the next attempt and ensured that they cleared it. Okay, so if there are a group of 50 students, at least 5 or 10 of them could clear, and that used to make a huge difference for the families from which they are coming in. Okay, because most of them were from not so well-to-do sections of society. All right, and that change is going to impact the next 3 generations. Because I see personally one of my friend who came from a very modest family, didn't have a good proper house, raised by a single mother, belongs to I can say disadvantaged sections of society. And when he got this opportunity, when he cleared the exam and when he finally completed his degree and got a good job, and now he's doing well, I can see the difference that he has made for his immediate relatives or for his children or for the next upcoming generations. So these measures indeed translate into tangible outcomes at the ground level, right? And this equal opportunity cell is entrusted with implementing such policies or programs. For example, in our campus also, there was one cell which was trying to educate people who are at the outskirts of our campuses, who are primarily from a rural background. So such kind of programs is entrusted or is responsible to be implemented by this welfare department of higher educational institutions. Second, every higher education institution must have a equity committee. Equity committee, the representation of which it must mandatorily contain members belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, women, and persons with disabilities. It must mandatorily contain these members from these backgrounds. And the function of this committee is to act like a campus court. If at all there are any allegations of caste discrimination, maybe by a professor, maybe by a fellow batchmate, maybe by the administration itself, that person can go to this equity committee, register a complaint and get it resolved. The composition of the committee is also mandated or given directions by the regulations itself. Now, they have also given the timeline of getting this complaints resolved. If a complaint is filed by any student, equity committee should meet within 24 hours. If a person goes and drops a letter or file or drops a mail to that equity committee, they have to mandatorily meet within 24 hours. Who are the members? It might be 10 members, 12 members, whatever it is. They have to go there and meet, and they have to conduct an inquiry. That inquiry has to be completed within 15 days. And once the report has been submitted, action has to be taken within 7 days. So within a span of 3 weeks, your complaint is not only heard, but a final report is passed and action has also been taken. It might be milder punishment or suspension or compensation, whatever that might be the case. Okay. And if the institutions are not following it, the principals or the vice chancellors are held legally responsible for non-compliance of it. So they can be penalized or they can be debarred if they are not complying with this regulations. So the provisions are stringent. So also is the implementation aspect of it. Okay. See, that's what I told you. There are penalties for your non-compliance as well. It might even withdraw the funding that has been granted to the higher educational institutions. There might be suspension of few programs. Okay. And also there are national level monitoring bodies which has been established. Okay. So the idea is that it audits the campuses so that all these regulations are being implemented actually at the ground level, right? One more thing which I think I forgot is, apart from Equal Opportunity Center and Equity Committee, there is also something called as Equity Squads or Ambassadors. They are nothing but the team who are going to randomly inspect high vulnerability areas like your canteens or hostels or playgrounds and try to ensure that such kind of discriminatory practices is not being followed, right? I remember in 2000, late 2008, 9, 10, similar kind of a provision was given by UGC with regard to anti-ragging squads. Because in the early 2000s, ragging became a huge national debate, which led to students committing suicides because they are not able to handle the pressure. And eventually UGC came up with regulations with regard to strict implementation of anti-ragging measures, and anti-ragging squads were committed. So I clearly remember that when I entered into second year, I was made to you can say sign a form which says that I'll not be involved in any ragging measures, and if at all I'm involved, I'll be penalized according to the provisions of the law. Right now we are, and at that point of time also there was anti-ragging squads who used to randomly come to our hostels at midnight, try and understand if everything is all right, because ragging used to generally happen at the night, right? So similar kind of equity squads or equity ambassadors has been envisaged in these regulations, right? Now, what are the concerns? These are some of the provisions, the institutional measures and the process and the penalties or the non-compliance and the monitoring or the auditing part of it. Now, what are the concerns? Why people are protesting? Why people protested? Primarily because whatever is the protection mechanisms that has been put in place is only for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, women and people with disabilities. It is excluding your general category students. So suppose if I am a general category student, I face some sort of a discrimination at the campuses. It can be possible. A person from a general category can be discriminated by the professor who is from a non-general category background. That possibility is existing or possible. So in such a situations, these type of mechanisms are not inclusive of it. So it is only for those sections of society. So general category students are excluded from a similar kind of protections. Also, the committee composition itself, whatever is the equity committee composition which is going to act as a campus court, that itself is structurally biased in favor of disadvantaged sections of society. So they feel that this has the potential to be misused against the general category students, and there can be a trend of reverse discrimination which can happen, right? So that is one of the primary concern, that a similar protection is not existing for your general category students. The structure and the provisions are in such a manner that it can be misused, because the penalties for misuse is not present. If a person tries to just file a complaint to take vendetta or to take vengeance or to take revenge, and if you find out that the complaint is false, there is no stringent penalties on the victim or on the person who has filed a complaint. As a result, there are chances that it is going to be misused for various reasons. Okay, and it can be, you can say, leading to a negative or a reverse discrimination in the campuses itself. Right? So no penalty for false complaints, and reverse discrimination narrative can gain ground. Okay. Also, there are certain implementation challenges. For example, not every institute can constitute a committee within 24 hours. Or there is a over bureaucratization with regard to the number of members to be present, auditings to be done, and all those things. Also about the timeline feasibility within 5 days and within 15 days and within 7 days, action has to be taken. There are certain concerns expressed with regard to implementation part of it, right? And procedural concerns are also expressed. For example, what are the rights of an accused? Because in a court of law, there are certain rights of an accused. So he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Is a similar kind of a provision applicable in this provisions? Okay. And what are the appeal mechanisms that have been present in this provisions? So if the campus court, whatever is the verdict that is given, and if it is not to the liking of either of the parties, whom should they appeal to? So that provisions has not been addressed satisfactorily in these regulations. And as a result of all this, people felt that it is a violation of Article 14. There can be possibility of potential misuse, reverse discrimination can happen, procedural challenges are still present. All of those reasons, they came back on the streets, tried to protest against it. Eventually, Supreme Court heard their grievances and stayed these regulations, right? So I've given this entire issue in an infographic. It's available in our Telegram channel. It's also available in our Means Infographic magazine of January 2026. So you can quickly go through it. I think one image is going to summarize the entire issue, whatever you listened just now. Let us now look into the question. I have tried to frame it from an ethics perspective. Can social prejudices be cured through policing mechanisms like equity sites? So they are saying that equity squads are there, right? Can external mechanisms try to deal with internal conflicts like prejudices? Okay. So they are saying discuss the ethical implications of creating such structures versus the need for fostering an organic inclusivity and empathy. Okay. So it is basically about external and internal mechanism to bring about a change in the behavior or the empathy of the students or the faculties itself. Okay, so try and attempt this question. It's a interesting, challenging question, and do send it to me on my mobile number and to my WhatsApp. Right. Here is my mobile number. This is my email ID. I'm always at your response. Right. All the very best. If you have any doubts, please do contact me on these numbers.